Nobody's ever gonna take your place. Yeah, I think we should meet in the middle. I follow you cause you're the light of the day. I need you like you need me, it's so simple. It's so simple.
Welcome back to the Gen X Juggler podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you've had a very manageable week and that you've juggled everything that's come your way with relative ease. I had a lot to juggle this week, but I was able to handle so much of it from my little handheld buddy, the iPhone. What would I do without it? You know, the fact that we Gen Xers just accept everything our smartphones can do as if it's no big deal is actually quite remarkable. Considering where we've come from compared to where we are now, we should be marveling at this all-encompassing device like cavemen marveled at fire. This week alone, I've made appointments for my parents, confirmed those appointments, set up reminders for appointments, ordered groceries, paid bills, and so much more, all from my phone. I love the Back to the Future movies, and I totally expected flying cars by now. That would have been really cool. But back in 1985, not even Doc Brown himself could have imagined that we would basically be able to run the world from the palms of our hands, just a few short decades later. Back then, we thought high-tech would look like Marty McFly's house in Back to the Future 2, where telephones would be replaced by large-screen TVs through which we could communicate and possibly get hoodwinked by Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Then, of course, we'd receive that fax letting us know we were fired. Rewatch Back to the Future 2, and all of what I just said will make a lot more sense. Can you imagine, back when we were kids, if one of our friends had said, "I want to take a picture. Let me get my phone." We would have thought they had drunk from the wrong garden hose. You know what I'm saying? And even if that could somehow have been possible for us to take pictures from our phone, every picture would have been taken in the kitchen because of how far the phone cord would stretch. And Mom would have constantly been reminding us that we only had 5 minutes just in case it was charging us long distance. We've come a long way, baby. Back then, calculators were our only everyday access to technology, and they were valuable, not only for helping with difficult math equations, but also for making us laugh when the boys would enter 531-8008 and then turn the calculator upside down to show us in the middle of class. If you know, you know. When I was a little girl, I used to go to my best friend's house and play on her totally awesome Tandy TRS-80 computer. Remember those? They were basically a keyboard that hooked up to the television set and came with a book of programs you could run. It was the first personal computer I ever encountered, and I was amazed by it. My friend would open the programming book, and I would patiently wait for her and or her brother to enter a long list of codes. I remember there being a lot of symbols and brackets and go-tos. Finally, when the last code was entered, and if there were no mistakes in the code, which would require starting completely over, something really cool, like a very simple animated smiley face or a kaleidoscope of colors would appear on the TV screen. The effect would last for about 1/50th of the time it took to program it in, but boy, was it worth it. Technology has progressed so much in our lifetime, and honestly, I'm still catching up. I graduated high school in 1994, so we had no training in the internet or any of the major technological advances that were right around the corner. I took typing class my sophomore year on an actual typewriter. I can still hear the din of that classroom when everyone was typing all at once. I also remember dropping that class because I got my first set of acrylic nails the day before a big typing test and not only failed, but failed. Of course, I needed those nails, so typing class just wasn't going to work for me. But no worries. I made up that class my senior year. By then it was called word processing, and we did our work on computers. There I was introduced to WordPerfect, which would later be known as Microsoft Word, or just Word, like Cher or Madonna. Word and I have become well acquainted over the past 30 years or so. My first semester of college, I had to take computer information systems. I dreaded that class. Plus, I wasn't convinced that I would even use computers in my daily life. I was studying to be a teacher and planned to grade with a red pen, record those grades in the gradebook with a black pen, and use chalk on the chalkboard. The most complicated piece of equipment I ever saw my teachers use was the overhead projector. but I was pretty sure I could figure that out. How hard could it be? Computers were going to be a total waste of time. Fortunately, we were all paired up in this class due to limited availability of computers, and I was paired with Kyle from Kalamazoo, Michigan. This guy knew his stuff. I let him take the lead on every project and just did exactly what he told me. Except for this one time. As I walked into class that morning, I noticed some weird codes written on the board. I hoped they weren't the precursor to some complicated assignment, although I did have Kyle, which eased my fears. When class began, the professor satisfied my curiosity by telling us that these codes were something called email addresses, and that they would allow us to send messages instantly. What? No way! The email addresses she had written on the board belonged to various people who were significant in politics or pop culture at the time. The assignment was to follow the professor's instructions on how to set up an email account. Of course, Kyle handled that part. And then choose an address from the list and send that person an email. I knew exactly where our email should go. Once Kyle agreed, with a bit of side-eye concerning my choice, I fired off my first ever email in November of 1994 to Rush Limbaugh, congratulating him on Republicans taking the House and the Senate in the midterm election. Do what you will with that, but I now find it hysterical that after all the many emails I have sent throughout my lifetime, Rush Limbaugh will always be my first. I eventually realized that this new ever-changing technology was here to stay, but it took a while for us to become friends. I took a hiatus from higher education 2 years in and went back to finish my degree in 2006 when I was 30. Only this time, everything was online. We had to access the books for our research papers from a library database online. We had to learn how to format these papers from a website, and they required us to use a thing called the Blackboard system to communicate with our classmates and professors. I was surrounded by millennials who had been best friends with technology for most of their lives. I, on the other hand, spent that first semester in a continual state of mild panic. But I had to learn. So I asked quite a few questions that obviously seemed stupid, or at least were stupidly obvious, to my millennial classmates. One of my sweet millennial friends playfully started calling me Techno, a moniker that I embrace to this day and use readily to let others know what to expect from me when it comes to learning the latest and greatest that technology has to offer. Although I am finally beginning to embrace technology and have gained enough experience through trial and oh so many errors that I am learning to use and appreciate the benefits of this new world, which I never could have imagined back in my paper and pencil childhood. It's not lost on me that technological advances are the reason I'm able to share this time with you right now, and for that I am grateful. I would say we're finally becoming friends, technology and I, now that I've relented and decided that stepping outside of my comfort zone isn't so bad after all. That does it for this episode of the Gen X Juggler podcast. As you sort through your to-do list in the coming week, I hope you have some really good technology at your fingertips to make accomplishing your tasks a bit easier. May your Wi-Fi be strong and your cell towers be plentiful. I look forward to our next time together. Until then, friends, let's keep on juggling.
Nobody's ever gonna take your place. Yeah, I think we should meet in the middle. I follow you 'cause you're the light of the day. I need you like you need me, it's so simple. It's so simple.